Good afternoon, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. And we're back with another episode of Tea with Sue. I'm calling today's episode, Transform Your Daily Grind. Let me start with a little story. When I was young, like 5, 6, 7, 8, that young, that's many years ago, we'd go to the playground, and in the playground or on the playground, they had created, playgrounds aren't today like they were then. In the 1950s and 60s, playgrounds had a vastly different set of things to play on. And one of the things there was to play on was the merry-go-round. Now, I think they still exist, but I'm sure they've added a whole bunch more safety features. In those days, merry-go-rounds had consisted of this big wooden disc on some kind of a spinning platform, and these bars that would focus in the middle and come out kind of like spiders' legs in you know, the pie-shaped segments of the circle of the disc. And the idea was that there'd be a dirt track around the merry-go-round. And so as kids, you would each grab onto one of those bars and run for all you're worth to get that merry-go-round spinning. And then at some point you would jump on. And if it was in the midst of spinning and somebody else wanted to jump on, they had to be a little bit fearless about grabbing someone's hand and then whoop, leaping over that little space between the dirt and the platform in order to get on safely. Well, of course, the stronger some of the youngsters were in the playground, the faster this thing would spin. And sometimes you'd lose your balance and the merry-go-round would spit you out into the dirt. Bam. So you might get a little bloody or bruised, or maybe you were nauseous because all that spinning, of course, really can upset a person's stomach after a period of time. But it was fun, and we'd laugh and then we'd get on again until we were tired of that. Now, it seems to me that sometimes life is a little bit like that there's this merry-go-round and we look at it, we say, oh, that looks like fun. I want to do that. I want to get on that. How does it work? And we learn how it works. And so then you get on, you know, you run around and run around and run around and build enough momentum, and you're learning and growing, and then you pick up speed, and then you jump on the platform and it goes around by itself. But sometimes that lovely spinning that we're so enjoying, we're going, whoa, this doesn't feel so good anymore. And maybe instead of feeling like this merry-go-round where we're quite happy, it starts to feel more like a hamster wheel where, oh no, stop the world, I want to get off. Have you ever noticed that? Some jobs that we take on can be like that, or some work environments can be like that, where it becomes the daily grind. And so in order to get through the daily grind, you go to the local coffee shop to take your daily grind in liquid form off to the office, right? So, and maybe you need 2 or 3 or 4 cups to keep you going and keep you activated throughout the day. We were talking about daily grind in a group that I participate in Groundswell University here just recently, and how the impact of the daily grind can be so stressful. So we began to question, at what point does your work become the daily grind? Does it shift from, oh, I'm curious and I'm learning and I'm enjoying this and I'm adding new skills, and then at some point it's just drudgery? Well, it's all about perspective, right? It's all about how we view whatever it is that's at hand, and whether or not it becomes highly stressful or highly entertaining, lots of fun, or, and this is just horrible work. So I think I grew up on a farm. When we moved to the farm when I was 8, and were there until I was 17. And on the farm, my grandma and grandpa, my dad's folks, came to run the farm. It was a mixed farm, and Dad was in the oil patch, so he couldn't run the farm. So they agreed to come. We moved a house for them onto the property, and Grandma would be out in the barn busy with milking cows and tending to the chickens and whatever other chores there were out there. And there would be days, especially in the summertime, when, now Grandma was an amazing cook, and she baked delicious pies, and there was always plenty of food over there. They had kind of a tiny house, and because Grandma loved being outside, she was also a gardener. She wasn't the best housekeeper. She was kind of messy, and so there were newspapers scattered all over, and there wasn't a place for all their stuff. And so it was kind of a disaster. And so I was a young teenager. So every now and again, I would sneak over to Grandma's house when I knew that she was out somewhere. And I'd do up her dishes and sweep her kitchen floor, and just make her place look better, make it all tidy, and so on. Well, this caused no end of frustration for my mom, because of course, was I that cooperative and helpful in our house? Well, not always. And sometimes she'd be, kind of dragging me, kicking and screaming to get my chores done in the house, in our house where I lived. Or pick up all the, I confess my closet was my bedroom floor, and I'd pull stuff off and just throw it on the floor. So after a while, she'd come to my room and take a look at the mess there on the floor, and she'd say, your dad is coming up to inspect your bedroom in about 10 minutes. Well, you never saw such a flurry of activity. So what had seemed like drudgery before all of a sudden became a mission to accomplish and to get it all done before Dad came up. And so what's the difference, right? Perspective, and how we approach whatever the task is at hand, or the work in front of us, or our careers, or our jobs, or whatever. And so what I found was how interesting that, based on, to a certain extent, on what we love to do versus what we really dislike doing, then a task can seem like drudgery, or it can seem sheer delight. Well, of course, if we view 80% of what we do on a day-to-day basis as drudgery, as the daily grind, life is not going to be very pleasant. That's not exactly my definition of heaven on earth. And yet the work is still there. So how do we make the shift? How do we transform what we see as our daily grind into something that's far more helpful for us, and really, ultimately, far more powerful? Well, we change our minds about what we're faced with. We decide that this is not the drudgery that we've made it out to be. In fact, it's neutral. I mean, work is work, and it's there to be done whether or not you like it. And so you might as well decide, well, I'm going to be happy doing it because it needs to be done, and it's my choice whether I'm mad about it or I'm happy about it. So it's making that switch in our brains. Now, if we're habitually wired to be, I don't want to have to do anything, and we go through that as kids and teenagers. I watch my granddaughters, and they're, would you do this for me? No. And they don't want to, because they're busy doing something that they're enjoying or like more. And so it's an interesting challenge to get them to kind of change their minds, so that so that what seemed like drudgery, what seemed, and they did begrudgingly, lots of resentment and so on, then they would say, oh, well, actually, that was kind of fun to do. So I made a game out of picking up Lego. I said, okay, let's see how fast we can go, put them in the bag. Well, then the girls got activated, and then they were kind of excited about doing it, and into the bag went the Lego. But it wasn't without a little bit of work on my part to get them to view it as a game. And once they did that, well, then it was easy. The task was easy. It finished up quickly, and then there was a little treat as a reward for having done that. So we're wired that way. We're wired to say, well, what's in it for me? And sometimes it's hard to find what's in it for you. But if you look hard enough and look long enough, you can see the satisfaction. Maybe it's just something as simple as, oh, I hate doing dishes, but I love the look of a clean, tidy kitchen. So which takes more energy, and which, if I just push myself a little, can I get that done and have the reward of the look of a clean and tidy kitchen? Well, same work involved, but it's that switch in my head. All right, let's just do it. We used to, years ago in personal growth, we got a little card that says JFDI. Well, I don't think I need to explain to you what the F means in JFDI. And it always put a little grin on my face, because in those words, no, those days, nobody used the F-bomb all that often. And so it was like this little guilty pleasure when I'd look at this thing on the fridge and on JFDI. But it helped turn my mindset around to the point where then I would activate. I still didn't necessarily feel motivated to do it. I didn't really want to do it, but I did it anyway. So when we think of how we approach life, so much of it depends on the attitude that we go in with, the mindset that we engage to say, well, is it going to bring me some joy, or am I just going to resent every last second of it? Well, what do you get out of it? Now, I'm pretty sure you know what you get out of it if you approach something joyfully. Let's look at what you get if you approach something resentfully. Well, what do you get? You get a whole lot of stress hormones coursing through your body that sit there and become toxins in your system, and they don't serve you physically. So why do you have backaches, headaches, migraines, stomach aches, arm aches, foot aches, leg aches, on and on and on, aches and pains, that then you go to the drugstore and stock up on all of those, quotes, painkillers, when maybe at the root of this whole scenario of physiological nastiness, the root is your mindset. The root is, whoa, what if I adopted a happy heart about that, and I went forward with that with some ease and delight, or at least acceptance. If you can't get to delight, well, I accept that the job is there to do, and I'm it. Am I going to do it joyfully, or am I going to just go kicking and screaming the whole way? Your choice, right? I mean, the job will still be there if you don't do it. And so how do we transform that? And so for those of you who are in the corporate world, I haven't been in the corporate world for lots of years, but I remember when I was, how much of a hamster wheel or a treadmill it felt like. It was just on and on and on. And there were times, and particularly the times I was in jobs that I didn't like all that well, or I knew I couldn't sustain my level of interest in. But I'd make a game of it and I'd say, well, how fast can I complete this accurately? Typing T4s for government filing, for income tax filing was one job I remember doing for a temp agency at one time, and they had 300 people in their company, and they needed these T4s done. Well, this was in the old days of typewriters, where you manually fed the pages into the typewriter, and then, using your guide of whose T4 it was and all their pertinent information, you filled in all these little boxes. It was tedious work and terribly boring. There was nothing energizing about it in any way, shape, or form. Well, I realized that I had a finite amount of time to get this job done. They'd hired me for 3 days, and I thought, okay, I got 3 days. Well, how can I make a game of this, knowing that it's just there's not going to be a whole lot of sunshine on this page, because it's just data. It's just typing. There's nothing joyful or creative about it, and it has to be accurate. It's really important. So I made a game of it. How many of these sheets of, I think there were 3 on a sheet, that I could get done and do them well, so that there were no mistakes or very few mistakes, and get them all done. So I had this little game going on inside my own head, and I'm bubbling away, doing do. A day and a half later, I had them all done. And I took them to the manager and I said, okay, here they are. And he looked at me and he says, wait a minute. Okay, let me check these. And I said, yeah, go ahead. And so about a half an hour later, he comes back and he said, okay, there's 3 mistakes here that you've made. And so this form and this form and this form, I need those corrected. So I had to do them over, because you couldn't correct your mistakes in those days. You had to retype them. So I just retyped them, gave them back to him, and he said, well, he said, the last person who did this, it took them 3 days and they had to do them twice because they did such a bad job the first time. And that's why we hired you for 3 days. But he said, I don't have any more work for you, except, I can give you a few things so that we can pay you for the other day and a half. And I said, yeah, fine, whatever else you have for me, I'm happy with that. And so we carried on. But of course, in my mind, when he's telling me the person a year ago had to do them twice, I thought, man, it was bad enough to do it once, never mind have to do it twice. So, but there it is, right? So we get these things in life, these opportunities where we're faced with work that we may or may not particularly enjoy. But if there's an end game in mind, well, why am I doing this? Do you have to? No, you don't have to. Maybe you're doing it because you need to put food on the table, to pay the rent, to make your car payments, to feed and clothe your kids. There's a reason, right? There's a compelling reason why you're doing it. It may not be your favorite thing to do. It may not be what you've always wanted to do with your life, but you still chose, okay, I'm here because of this end goal. This is providing support for my family, and this is important to me. So you place a value on that, and then you choose to do that. Now, maybe you'll do it for a certain period of time, and then you say, oh, this is so bad. Well, guess what? You can choose again. You can say, well, no, I don't want this dead end job going nowhere. I want something else. I still want to be able to feed and clothe my family and keep a roof over our heads, but not this way. Well, then you get to pick again. Is it risky to make the move? Yep, of course it is, because you don't know what you're going to. The unknown is the unknown. And so there might be some trepidation or some feelings inside where you go, yeah, but there's the golden anchor, right? Well, I got benefits here, and I've got a good job, and I've been here for so many years, and da 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 da. But the merry-go-round became a treadmill. and the daily grind is not so happy anymore. And maybe, I mean, we go into these things sometimes for job security. I grew up with the idea, oh, well, if you work for a big company, you know, then you have a stable job and you got job security. Well, all it takes is getting fired once and you realize there's no such thing as job security, or you're made redundant, or whatever the popular term is these days, that your position is no longer there. Therefore, they don't need you anymore. Well, there you are, back out in the big wide world, in the dirt, wondering, okay, now where? What direction? Well, you don't have to get back on the merry-go-round that just spit you out. You could look around and say, well, where else could I go? And that can lead you in some pretty interesting directions that you might be far more satisfied with. So I got fired when I was 23, I think. Oh, I was devastated. I just, oh no, that I felt so much shame about that. And I was mad. I was mad at the company for doing that to me. Well, it didn't take me too many years later, and I realized they actually did me the biggest favor they ever could have, because I went elsewhere and I found my place in the world. I found what it was I most loved to do. And I don't think I'd have found that necessarily if they hadn't said, you know, Sue, we don't think you're working out quite as much as we wanted you to. And so off you go. And so then it opened up doors that I didn't even know were there. Was it scary? Yeah, it was. And it was demoralizing and all the rest of it to try to, you know, pound the pavement to find something else. But it also gave me the courage to take a risk, because I realized quite quickly, well, if there is no such thing as job security, I guess I need to make my own security. So how can I secure my future myself? What can I do about that? And then I took the proactive steps to make that happen. Wasn't without a lot of experimenting and back and forth, and some things worked and others didn't, but that was okay. That was okay. That was just part of the process. So I really want to encourage you this week to take a look at what's going on in your whole being in relation to the work that you do, whether it's work that you do after work in your home, or whether it's work that you do on a daily basis. Is there a way, and there probably is, to make more of your tasks more enjoyable? And what way would that be? Would it be a shift in mindset? Would it be a way of taking time to just decompress and calm yourself down partway through the day so that you can regroup and re-energize and be more creative? Like, what is it that are there other parts of your job that you love the most, and you have the authority to farm out some of the things that you really don't like to do? So what is it that can support you in that? And I mean, business owners all the time are looking for ways to get other people dealing with things that they're not the expert in. They need it done, but they're not the ones to do it. And then they seek other people who for whom that is their expertise, that is where they shine. So there's lots of ways of doing this, but it starts with our mindset. It starts with how we're going to approach whatever's in front of us. And believe me, when you do it with a curiosity, a happy mindset, a positive attitude about, you know, something good is going to come from this path I've decided on, or I see this reward in my future, and that's what I'm going towards, even though the way might be rocky and hard and tricky at times. Then you see the destination in mind, and it feels good, it feels right. And of course, along the journey, you can meet such interesting people and have things come into your life that you couldn't have anticipated. So again, it's back to perspective. How are you going to perceive that, because really the only game that's going on is the one inside here. That's really where the magic happens, and that's where the misery happens. So what do you want, magic or misery? It's up to you. Personally, I've lived quite a lot of misery on my way to the magic, and it served me. The misery served me in a certain way, but I don't want to live in it anymore. I'm pretty much done with that. And so anytime I hit the edge of misery, then I start, whoa, wait a minute. No, I'm choosing differently now. And then you go, okay, where's the magic? And you're looking for that. And where is the magic? Well, it's in here, because you are this magnificent being who has the ability to attract and bring in whatever it is that you need to make that magic happen, to activate that magic. It starts with you, all right? You're the only one that can do it, and you live in your skin, so it is up to you. You're responsible for creating the kind of life that you most want to live. So I want to encourage you, like, get on with it, right? Like, what are you waiting for? If you're wallowing in misery, well, maybe you like that, and that's okay if that's where you want to be. But if you've had this notion that, wow, I don't really like this too much, guess who's the only one that can do something about it? And time is marching on, right? Tick, tick, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I was reminded the other day, somebody said, Sue, how old are you? And I shared that information, and he said, well, how many more years do you think you have? And I said, I think I got another 30 years in me. And he said, well, what are you going to do for the rest of for all of those 30 years? How are you going to live your life, and where are you going to go with it? And I said, well, I have big plans actually for that 30 years. And so I best get on with it, right? I best stop hanging out in fear, which is where a lot of my misery has come from, because I've been afraid. I've been playing small in a small pond, when my desire is to play much bigger in a much bigger pond. What has stopped me to this point? Well, fear has stopped me. No, I've stopped me. I've allowed fear to override those desires, to override what it is I feel I want to contribute to the world. So I did it. Nobody did that to me. I did it. And so now I've decided, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to find my ways of working myself out of that, even if it takes a little time. I don't think I have enough confidence in my own magic at the moment to just go and make it happen. Others seem to, but it might take me a little longer, but that's okay. Eventually I'll figure it out, and then maybe I'll go and it's done. All right. So another day I'll tell you about spoon bending and how that all works to find your own magic. But in the meantime, you can do this, my magnificent friends, because you're that magnificent. So go take it on, enjoy being on the merry-go-round, and when you've decided you've had enough, let it spit you out so you can go off and do something else. Love and hugs to you all. Oh, and if, of course, as always, if you're enjoying Tea with Sue, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sue Paulson. You can also get lots more videos if you download my free app, The Magnificence Mentor, and become a member, because then it opens up all kinds of other video content and articles and free stuff that just might tickle your fancy and make your day better. I look forward to that. In the meantime, take good care.